My name is Gustavo Vasquez. I'm the director for United Methodist News for the Hispanic Latino audience. And I'm glad to be the moderator of this time on our meeting. As part of my job, I have to be monitoring frequently the social medias. And recently, there have been a lot of stories and articles about the diversity and how the fear among race have been using in the political arena, but also have been part of the problems that are emerging in our society, especially in the last years. Yesterday, when I was in the lobby, I take one of the newspapers there, USA Today, and in the first page, they have a story about how the racial minority groups are emerging and the importance on the electoral process that the minority groups have been taking, especially in the next election. So diversity is an issue that is right now a very important in the social dynamic that is around us. The church historically have been talking about the inclusion of diversity, but I think it's important now to understand that the church doesn't have to just think on the incorporate diversity, but also provide examples in the society about how important it is to understand each other, even when we are different, even when we are from different backgrounds and different cultures and different races. So this is a wonderful time to share with a wonderful group of people about the ministry of the church in the middle of this diversity. And I want to invite you to read this brochure that is probably in your table. And some of our speakers will be talking about that after. And introduce you a wonderful panel that we have today. The Bishop Minerva Carcaño, Episcopal leader of San Francisco area. The Reverend Jorge Dominguez, Executive Director of Connectional Ministry in the Annual Conference of California, Nevada. The Reverend Siobhan Cornell, Executive Director of Native American Comprehensive Plan. Reverend Paul Chang, Executive Director of the Korean Ministry Plan. Tosca Medlock Lee, Interim Director of Strengthening the Black Church for the 21st Century. The Reverend John Ora, Program Manager of Asian American Language Ministry Plan. Mr. Manuel Padilla, Interim Director of the National Plan for Hispanic Latino Ministry. Mona Lisa Tuitahi, Executive Director of the Pacific Islander National Caucus, and the Reverend Lisette Perez, that is the pastor of Oasis United Methodist Church in Pleasantville, New Jersey, and also the president of Marcha, the Hispanic Latino National Caucus. And now I want to let her come, Lisette, and make a welcome and introduction to the group.
Thank you. Welcome. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Annyeonghaseyo. Aloha. Niho ma. All the languages we can use at this time. And I just want to make sure that on behalf of the Racial Ethnic Plans and the IESDG, the Inter-Ethnic Strategy Development Group, which is all the caucus, the racial caucuses of our United Methodist Church working together to color our kingdom. I love this brochure. If you didn't have a chance to get one and read it, it's wonderful. It is inviting us to color the kingdom of God and to try to make sure that we color it with all our diversity, to color it with our color, race, language, genders, I would add, and theological and cultural perspectives. So welcome to this space as we hear from the different national plans and from the different racial ethnic. I just want to welcome you and also to invite you to color with us. Thank you.
It's a big pleasure, and I'm really glad to introduce you, and I want invite you to give a very warm welcome to the Bishop Minerva Carcaño, that we have a wonderful reflection with us today.
Good afternoon. Grace and peace to you in the name of Christ our Lord. I love this brochure, Coloring God's Kingdom with Our Diversity. What a great image. When my daughter Sophia was a little girl, we gave her this small palette of watercolors, and the first thing that came out of her 2-year-old mouth was, "Where are my brushes? I want to color." She delighted in coloring everything around her. Wouldn't it be wonderful, brothers and sisters, if we, the church, delighted like children in coloring God's kingdom with our diversity, coming to inhabit it with the fullness of the palette of colors that God has made us to be, with space enough for all of us. You and I know that it takes intentionality to color God's kingdom in this way. The intentionality of never losing colorful beauty, knowing that if everyone around us looks just like us, we've lost some beauty. The intentionality of ardently desiring to be brought into connected relationship with one another, so very close that the colors of our identities begin to flow into one another's identity, bringing hues of beauty that we've never seen before. The intentionality of celebrating the diversity in the mind of our Creator God when He took the dust and the brushes of His creative spirit and colorized us all to His heart's delight. This is the heart, I believe, of our national plans for racial ethnic ministries of the United Methodist Church: Native American, Pacific Islander, Korean, African American, Black, Hispanic, Latino, and Asian American. For many years, these plans have been working on behalf of all of us and working on behalf of generations yet to come, truly helping us to live out our commitment to receive God's gift of human diversity in all of its colors. We receive the fruit of the mighty efforts of our national plans in new members who help us to see the world more clearly and affirm that indeed God is with us. Because of the work of the national plans, our worship, and especially our hymnody in the United Methodist Church, has been so deeply enriched. Think about all the songs that would not be with us in our spirit, in our dancing, in all that we do, if it weren't for the communities that have been welcomed through the work of the national plans. Through the encouragement of our national plans, seminaries are today led by professors from all over the world. They come to us bringing their deep understandings of God's message, helping to equip us to speak to a world in need of hope and of transformation. The national plans are leading us to come closer to being the church that I believe God calls us to be, a church that gathers in all of God's children and extends Christ's grace and mercy to all of us, that we may then turn and do the same for others. It's a joy, a true joy, to see the growth of the ministry being done through our national plans for racial ethnic ministries, and to now experience as well how they are working together, because racial ethnic communities are no longer the siloed communities of the past. My own daughter is, I've learned, Mexican, Italian, Greek, Jewish, English, Scottish, and Irish that we know of. And this was true even before Ancestry.com. From the beginning of time, From the beginning of time, we have all been intimately connected to one another in the diversity of our humanity, seen through now our present multiculturalism. The fact that the national plans are bringing forth their quadrennial budget together with a commitment to multicultural initiatives is a sign that they have caught the vision of what God's kingdom truly looks like. A sacred place where we find a color match for each one of us, and we are all called the beautiful beloved. As we journey towards General Conference 2020, there are shades of concern, however, opportunities for us to grow in our faithfulness to God, our Creator. I would briefly highlight the following. The recently released protocol strives to protect funds for racial ethnic plans and Africa University. I know that many of us greatly appreciate this intentional effort, but what about the historic Black colleges? The worst thing that we as the church can do to undermine racial ethnic ministries is by pitting them against one another. The color then becomes the red of blood lost in the fight over resources. Friends, the United Methodist Church is not poor. We are not poor. We are a rich church, greatly blessed by God. We just need to keep prayerfully prioritizing living into the church that God calls us to be. Also, we would go backwards if the hard work of the national plans that has caused the wonderful rise of new racial ethnic leaders across the church would be set aside for the expediency of any organizational restructuring the General Conference 2020 may consider. I do not believe that God's preferred future for the United Methodist Church returns us to a leadership that is monochromatic. Finally, for this limited moment as a worldwide church, we must not forget that the institutional racism that requires us to do intentional work of reaching out to and welcoming people of color is not work done only in the United States, but around the world in its different contextual manifestations of racial discrimination, of racial inequity, of ethnic status discrimination, tribalism, and xenophobia. This is the work of the whole church. Let me say that again. This is the work of the whole church, and it should not be placed on the shoulders of racial ethnic communities. I give God thanks with you for our national plans for racial ethnic ministries. They are truly helping us to become the Church of God's hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. And now I want to introduce all of you, the directors and the executive of the different national plans that work with the different racial ethnic communities in the United Methodist Church.
Unity is not a divine miracle. It is the result of honoring the distinctiveness and the context of each ethnic collective. It's the result of embracing the differences the Creator has imbued in all of us and to nurture it with unlimited benevolence and care. As the interim national director for SBC 21, it is my pleasure to be a part on this panel with these 6 ethnic plans and the leaders who believe in the diversity and color and cultural perspective of our work. On behalf of the Strengthening the Black Church for the 21st Century Bishops, Tracy Malone and Jonathan Holston, we thank you for this amazing opportunity to share the impactful work that SBC 21 is doing to strengthen Black churches and its leaders. I also want to recognize the extraordinary leadership and witness and passion of Dr. Fred Allen, who has labored and served our church for more than 50 years. Dr. Allen retired this past year, but his legacy, his work, and commitment to the Black church have made us all better. While we are in the midst of transition at SBC 21, our ministry work and our focus remain strong. Our programs enjoyed the support of a myriad of general agencies and annual conferences, including Discipleship Ministries and the Upper Room, who are our administrative partners, General Board of Church and Society, the General Board of Global Missions, United Methodist Women, United Methodist Communications, GCF&A, countless annual conferences and churches. We are transforming our congregations. Because of my limited time, I will quickly share with you a couple of signature programs that impacts the witness of Black churches across our connection. Mass incarceration is one of the most pressing issues of our time, and it is specifically an issue for the Black community and the Black church. SBC 21 has addressed this issue head on. We are working in more than 36 annual conferences and churches with our National Prison and Social Justice Ministry. Take a look at this video, which is a demonstration of some of our work related to disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline with our partnership with United Methodist Women. Today's event, I'm excited. We are having a kickoff for the National Prison Summit on Mass Incarceration. And today is what we call a pre-intensive for educators in a discussion and a teaching and training around the school-to-prison pipeline and what every educator should know. The vision is that teachers from the Dallas-Fort Worth area can get together and just to become aware and to have some understanding on the school-to-prison pipeline, the cradle-to-prison pipeline, just information about it and what's happening and how it impacts the classroom and education, and what they can learn and strategies that they can learn to take away to prepare the classroom for this type of issue.
It was wonderful talking to the educators of DISD and what we can do, how we can partner, how their decisions impact the kids that we're dealing with. So how we can partner to make that work instead of expelling kids from school and they come into the juvenile system, and then once they go from the juvenile system, 70% of the kids who are removed from school and end up in detention do not get a diploma. So how can we address that? How can we change that? How can we keep kids in school? So I commend DISD. You have dedicated people who are willing to make a change in the kids' lives that we serve by not referring them, not kicking them out, finding the resources that the school has, referring them to an ARD to keep them in and get them to services. So DISD, educators, you guys rock. Thank you very much.
We are excited that we will host this 2020 National Prison Summit in Compton, California, on October the 29th through the 31st, 2020. So you'll be getting more information about that. And finally, our national network of young adults. The NNYA, in its third year, has delivered amazing results to grow a pipeline of young leaders, transformational leaders for our church. Its core program, Leading in Transformation, also known as LIT, has seen a tremendous results of our work. The program, led by Nathalie Nelson Parker, is proud to report that NNYA now has over 200 young adults who have accepted their call to ministry. 10% of those are currently in seminary, and 54 are currently on a path towards ordination in the United Methodist Church, all under the age of 35 years old. Take a look at this video.
Hey, we here, we lit. 2019, Leading in Transformation. If you not at this conference, if you are not here, I'm letting you know that this is the only place where transformation takes place.
Thank you for allowing me to share the SBC 21 impact with you, and now I will invite my colleague up.
Chabon Colonel Choho Jifkados, Halabi Kanidi Adolwa, Chogo Thakoji, Olegida Hutkin Legat, Hadot Gogi, Amalegida Doa. I had to start out that way to honor my ancestors as I come here before you and our long legacy being a part of this United Methodist structure. I just want to first and foremost say thank you for this moment to briefly introduce myself. As a part of that introduction, I told you in my language what clan and what family I come from. As a part of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma and the Muskogee people we are descendants from, telling everyone in the room, this is who I represent as I stand before you. And to also introduce you to the work of our Native American Comprehensive Plan. As I was saying, I'm a member of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, and I have been the executive director of our comprehensive plan for the past 9 months. What a time to enter the conversation with you today. But I want you to know who I am and why I am here. I am a third-generation Methodist, as my grandmother was a women's leader at one of our traditional Native American churches in the Oklahoma Indian Missionary Conference. And I believe at last count, that church and congregation was around 180 years old, if I'm not mistaken. I am an elder in the OIMC, and I am the former executive secretary of Native American and Indigenous Ministries at Global Ministries. And in years past, I was asked to do several tasks for our denomination. One of those, of course, some of you may know of, the Council of Bishops asked me to be our Native American liaison that assisted our entire denomination in its acts of repentance movement towards indigenous peoples. As many of you know, I come before you here this afternoon speaking with certain levels of anxiety and even disappointment, but I also come here with certain levels of hope. Since the days of my UMYF career, I guess you could say, in the United Methodist Church, in me has been instilled values of inclusivity and spirituality that goes back generations from the first day that I set foot in my first youth rally as a young man. This denomination even cultivated in me the notion that my voice as a Native American person is of value in this world. It is the same voice that I use today to speak on behalf of our work as the ethnic racial plans of our denomination, the work of the Native American Plan as its executive director, and it is this voice that I speak from to represent all of our relatives of diversity all throughout creation. Just as happened many times in history, we are now finding ourselves asking the same questions that we have before. Where is our place in this movement? Asking questions of inclusivity, asking questions of representation, asking questions such as, will the denomination that we have all come to be a part of and love force us to find another spiritual home? The respective leaders of our movements quickly recognized that as we've been going over for the past 48 hours, the proposals, they quickly recognized that the interaction between grassroots movements of respective denominational proposals only minimally included the voices of our ethnic representatives and communities from around our connection, and in some circumstances did not even include our voices at all. Our hope, not our dismay, but our hope is that while we have frustrations, that we too can continue to join together in efforts to protect the life-altering work of our national plans. Every person that you see on the videos, every voice that is represented in the directors up here is engaging in life-changing ministry at this very moment. But yet we have to confess, will that continue on into the future? Even for our Native American Comprehensive Plan, our hope is that this relationship will continue for many years to come. Native peoples have historical roots in this movement. My own ancestors as Muskogee people met with John Wesley and others from the Savannah community as this movement was in its infancy. My own ancestors started those conversations that we are now still having today. Our hope is now that our work can continue as we come out of a time of transition, especially for us in the Native American plan, in the Native American community, and into an era of healthy relationships where our communities of faith and partnering allies can focus on the importance of some of our priorities as indigenous peoples. Remembering the importance of our indigenous languages, recovering some of our indigenous spiritualities, which at one time was demonized by all denominations of the Christian faith. Seeking justice for climate and this Mother Earth that provides us everything that we have. And even the priority, most importantly, of remembering the place of indigenous women here domestically and abroad across the world. Remembering the violence that we have to survive before we even can get to church. We're hoping that we can remain in partnership with each one of you relatives as we seek to create a better world, not just for the ethnicities that we represent, but for all our people. A few months ago, all of our groups came together and we held for the first time in history, we held a young adult gathering. In fact, there's a report on the state of the church in your booklet on page 22 about it. We hand-selected 80 persons from each of our constituencies to come and to talk about the need for our future, the need of working together. And in fact, it was us as directors. We were the ones that were the students because we learned what we need to be doing to advocate for our people. And even we quickly realized in this group that was all of our respective ethnicities represented, we realized that in that body was a vast theological diversity, a vast understanding of what it meant to be a member of the Christian faith, a vast array of thinking. But what taught us this, that despite even all of these differences, the young people valued that diversity and wanted to worship together, wanted to do things together, wanted to go do service projects together. They wanted to grow together. It taught us to have faith in our people and their young people and their leadership. But one of the things that we came to a conclusion also after we began to look back is that in that group of young adults, it represents how the world around us looks. Even though there are times when our churches do not look that way. We saw the value in working and praying and being reverent in the midst of all of diversity. Today, in what we create in the next few months, it is our hope that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past, because I stand before you as a community who has been victim of the mistakes of many denominations. And our hope is to eliminate the perpetuation of spiritual violence in all its many forms. But hopefully we can work to create a place where discrimination is not accepted and it begins. It's not the ending point. That work begins with supporting the work of our racial ethnic plans. It starts there in supporting our self-determination to begin to craft a ministry and life of spirituality in the Methodist movement. Today, we are praying and hoping that this step will be the first step that will preserve our presence for many generations to come. Mado Jage Just Jay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends. Grace and peace to you in the name of Jesus Christ. My name is John Oda. I direct your Asian American ministry plan, and I've been in this position for the past 6 months, so I'm the new kid on the block. Yesterday, Bishop O preached a powerful sermon, and in that sermon, he came to the conclusion that God is with the United Methodist Church, even during these uncertain times. And I wholeheartedly agree. I have seen the fruits of the Holy Spirit and the work of these national plans. Just FYI, if you want to look at the reports, you can find them in the ADCA. The report on the Asian American Ministry Plan can be found on page 682. I'm going to show a couple of slides here. The Asian American Ministry Plan was established after the 1996 General Conference, and its main purpose is to strengthen the entire church, by increasing the number of vital Asian American congregations in the United Methodist Church. And as you've been hearing, there are 6 different ethnic plans, and I want to point out that these are different than the 5 ethnic caucuses. Sometimes people get those mixed up. All right, so AALM itself works with 12 different sub-ethnic caucuses. That's 12 different languages: Cambodian, Chinese, Filipino, Formosan, Hmong, Indian, Japanese, Korean, Lao, Thai, Middle Eastern, and Pakistani and Vietnamese. Yes, Middle Eastern is part of the AALM ministry plan, and we welcome them. So AALM is especially important today. I don't know if you know this, but the Asian American communities are the fastest growing ethnic community according to the 2017 Pew Research study. It is estimated by 2055 the Asian Americans will surpass the Hispanics in the United States. Now, if there is anything at all that you remember from these little slides that I'm showing you, please remember this, all right? There's been a lot of talk about the decline of the United Methodist Church, and I'm here to tell you that with the work of the national plans, we have changed this. Between 1996 and 2016, the Asian American membership in the United Methodist Church grew by 106%. 106%. In the other ethnic communities, Pacific Islanders grew by 101%. Hispanic membership grew by 78%. African American membership grew by 37%. Native American membership grew by plus 23%. And unfortunately, the Euro-American membership declined by 21%. So we do this work by providing funding, training, language resources, and focus on 4 different areas: leadership development, church growth, language resources, and working with the poor. If you have more questions, you could reach out to me. My email is here. I want to finally just point out that the national plans are working together and are stronger together. And an example of that is what Siobhan lifted up, the 2019 ethnic young adult gathering that happened in Evanston. We stand together, we work together, and we do this by sharing resources, by sharing ideas, and of course, sharing our prayers for one another. So we thank you for your continuing support for all of the national plans of the United Methodist Church.
I too want to ask permission of the first people of this land, of the elders and the spirits that are here with us, permission to speak before you. And with that, I greet you with a big aloha. Very well. My name is Mona Lisa Tuitahi. And I greet you with those beloved words, words that I'm sure if you have been so lucky, you have heard far and wide if you visited the Hawaiian Islands, but words that are very dear to my heart because they make up the very core of how I live my life. Along with Pacific Islanders among you, Fijians, Tongans, Samoans, it is the very word that practices and that includes the bond that includes and keeps including others and others along the way. It is the word that says to the other, I need you because you complete me, and you need me. And it is in that very concept that the Pacific Island Ministry Plan was born. And I'll say to you, some of you may remember this, we first talked about the Pacific Island Ministry Plan, the youngest of the 6, perhaps in the neighborhood of 2007, 2008. So around that time, everybody was experiencing financial difficulties. And GCFA, even General Conference said, we don't have any more funding for this program. We recognize it's important, but we don't have the funding for it. So these plans director got together and said, we are not going to leave our Pacific Island brothers and sisters behind. So they gave up a bit of their budget so that we could have something called the Pacific Island Ministry Plan. And we have lived in that pattern of mutuality and reciprocity, something that is very dear and defines my very existence, but not just me. These very people, you are defined by mutuality and reciprocity. And it is that we come back to. And I'm not going to say that in the last 2 quadrennium that the Pacific Island Ministry Plan has been in existence, that we have gotten the way to do it, that we have done reciprocity and mutuality in a way that we have always planned among our local churches, among our annual conferences. No, we are far from it. But I will say this, that United Methodist annual conferences, general agencies, superintendents, seminarians, professors at seminary have said, Pacific Islander, we want to be in mutual relationship with you. We value you. And because in common, all we are doing up here is trying to bring up the very best of who we are so that we can offer that to a world that is hurting and crying, and we have it all within our own fingertips. And so that is the work that the ethnic plans have been doing. It's somewhat of a code name for the work of building relationship that we have been about. And in reciprocity, Pacific Island United Methodist communities have showed up. They've showed up in numbers. They've showed up in apportionment. To be clear, it is still a struggle. As we are talking about new ministries, people trying to survive, people living in the ghettos, people trying to put bread on the table and to pay rent and make sure that they have housing for the next month. This is a universal issue, so I'm not going to bore you any further with those grim statistics, as we all know it all too well. Suffice it to say that we recognize it and are in mutual relationship with our families, with our general agencies, with our annual conferences, with our bishops, with our superintendents, so that we can walk together and perhaps make a difference. I will tell you, however, of a gift that we Pacific Island Ministry Plan family, our Ohana, everyone from the local churches to the ethnic caucuses, and I don't just mean the Pacific Islander caucus, I mean everybody. From BMCR to Marcha to NAFAM, we are all together in this. We have, particularly in the last quadrennium, nurtured and empowered Pacific Island young people. Specifically, we have recognized the challenge of migration, and you know this. You know that changes come to different generations in a different way. So we have focused on our youth and young adult, And in doing so, we have impacted over 500 youth and young adults in our general church leadership development and also in our regional annual conferences, camps, and gathering for Pacific Islanders. And so without further ado, I want to end with a short video to that effect. But more importantly, I want to remind you to be in authentic, mutual relationship with each other so that we can bring out the best in each other and make a difference in this world. So I'll end with a short video. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak before you.
Many of these young people will be here for the first time, not just in DC, but maybe have traveled for the first time ever.
MANA is a U.S. gathering of United Methodist Pacific Islanders from 18 to 40 years old.
I migrated here as an adult, and to find out that there were other Pacific Islanders, not just Fijian, but of the other races too, that were part of the United Methodist Church, it felt like home.
This was the first social creed of the Methodist Church.
The three-day conference helps young people from Samoa, Tonga, and Fiji discern a call to church leadership and provide support and mentoring.
Working with the young people is how I utilize my skills and talents for the ministry.
These young people were in the church, they were in the back of the pews, they were in the parking lot, but they did not feel the relevancy of their involvement in the United Methodist Church.
What I'm passionate about is identifying talents within the youth and young adult, showing them how to lead Bible studies, small groups, connecting them to leadership resources, trainings such as this one.
Organizers hope these young people will preserve their cultural traditions within the United Methodist Church and pass them on.
I love to use my gift of singing and music for the church. I'm a choir director, and I use it every week in church.
Attending these conferences and being surrounded by peers who share the same passion with you, it inspires you and motivates you to want to continue to serve the ministry faithfully and with all your heart.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Chang. I'm the executive director of the Korean ministry plan. Actually, I volunteered not to speak today because there are so many speakers, but my colleague sitting next to me insists that I should speak. So anyway, I'll be brief. First, we are called national plans, but the word national is becoming a misnomer because we are really working beyond the national boundary of the US, and we are really working on global mission on many different projects. And secondly, we say there are 6 national plans, but we work together. We are lodged in 2 different general agencies, but we feel that we have common destiny and also common work to do. So for me, there is only 1 national plan and 6 different expressions. And thirdly, if you need a partnership for Korean ministry in your district, in your annual conference, just let me know. Thank you.
Hello, I am Manuel Padilla. I am interim director for the Plan for Hispanic Latino Ministry. And you have to know that one of our greatest theologians died preaching a message that said, hope is built, not given. And that is what the United Methodist people has been doing with the ethnic initiatives. Since 1992, our forefathers realized that monocultural, monolingual, monogenerational was not the right way to build the kingdom. You have to know that nowadays the 6 ethnic initiatives are working with all the annual conferences in continental US. And together we create partnerships and implement relevant programs that affect not only local congregations, but local communities. And today, as we gather as stewards of the future of the United Methodist movement, we invite you to continue building this hope. A hope of a church that does not make sense to us, but that makes sense to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you for the participation, all of the leaders of the different racial ethnic groups. We will have some minutes to have any questions and answers. If you have any question, please go to the microphone, identify yourself, and make a question to any of our panelists.
My name is Andy Bryan. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a clergy delegate. It's not a question. I was just wondering if the slide that had the growth of the various groups could be put back up there. I wasn't quick enough to get my phone out to take a picture of that. I believe it was from John's.
I think even the numbers and the information is in the brochure, too.
About the growth from John's portion. Yeah, it's worship attendance numbers.
It's in the app. The Sedge app. The Sedge app. It's in the Shed app.
What's the presentation from
Right there.
John Ora? Yeah. Yes.
Yes, Tom Hudspeth from Lovers Lane United Methodist Church in the North Texas Conference. I just want to say to all of the panelists that you have deaf people in each of your communities that we are serving. And I feel like they're underserved. And I want just to say, do not forget the deaf in your ministry, and that the United Methodist Committee on Deaf and Hard of Hearing Ministries and the United Methodist Congress of the Deaf are willing to partner with you if you'll partner with us. We also have a need to provide training and theological training for deaf people, and we need a national plan for deaf and hard of hearing ministry. So I'm thinking of ways to partner with you. I don't have a question, but just a commission.
Thank you. Thank you.
Byron Thomas, clergy, North Georgia. It's not a question, but let me first thank you all for the work, the tremendous work that you have been doing. I appreciate it so very much. But there was an article published in May of 2018. It was published in an edition of My Soul Looks Back by James Wallace. It was entitled, Why James Cone Was the Most Important Theologian of His Time. And in that article, it stated that James Cone not only opened the door to liberation theology, but showed the message of liberation to be at the core of the gospel. I juxtaposed this against an article recently published in another magazine by the president of Southeast Baptist Theological Seminary, which he stated, and I quote, James Cone was a heretic and almost certainly is not a Christian. Based on his teachings, we do not legitimize him. I speak to this at this time because even as there has been tremendous advancements because of the work that you have done, I would ask us to pay attention to the fact that there remains in this age the notion that people of color need to be legitimized by anyone, and that is a heretical teaching. I would encourage us to be cautious that even in the midst of the advancements that have been made by the work that you are talking about, that progress can be tenuous, and we have to continue to fight the same battles over and over again. Thank you again for the work that you've done.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Well, let's invite Reverend Jorge Dominguez to close this time with a word of prayer.
I would invite you to stand so we can direct our minds, our hearts in a moment of prayer. Dear God, we come to you at this time when we are approaching our General Conference once again. Some and many of us with concerns, with our hearts in prayer, trying to understand your will about our unity towards the future so we can continue to do your mission, to be your partners in mission. Help us not to forget that the road to unity is an unfinished journey. Sometimes our eyes are not open to the little ones at the side of this road. Sometimes we forget the people who are not visible. Sometimes we forget the people who were here before us. We come to your presence asking that you continue to lead us and guide us in our search to learn from each other, to include all of our diversity as your creation, as your image, a beautiful image that brings us in a colorful mosaic of your kingdom. Help us to acknowledge the moments that we were not faithful. Help us to not lose courage even in moments of trial, that we are with you, and that our church is trying to face our sins, our theological differences, our struggles, but particularly not to forget that we have in many, many moments excluded people who are not in the center. Thank you for this opportunity and for this blessing that these ethnic ministries have provided to our church. Help us to see your hand working through them and helping to renew our commitment to be with you, the people called the United Methodist Church. Amen.